Hi, my name's Alex. I'm going to be talking to you about my understanding of the paleo diet. Now, the paleo diet has gotten a lot more popular the last few years, so you may have heard about it, but you may not know a whole lot about it. Now, some people are going to ask, well, do we really know what our Paleolithic ancestors ate? Archaeology and anthropology have given us some pretty good clues as to what they did eat, but the truth is there is no one paleo diet. It really would have depended on where you lived, what season it was. So obviously if it was summer or winter, if you lived by the sea or maybe in a big grassy plain, that would have determined what was locally available to you depending on where you were in the time of year. So there really was no one paleo diet. But we do know a lot now about what they wouldn't have eaten. So our Paleolithic ancestors would have had no agriculture, they had no chemistry, they had no biological engineering or genetic engineering. These are all modern things that we've done to our food that have done things like increase their yield, allowed us to feed a lot more people, but they've had some unintended health consequences. And the Paleolithic diet is about going back to a time before these changes were made to our diet, and that's why it's a lot healthier for us. So I don't really like to talk about what we don't eat on a paleo diet. I'm going to have to, but I like to really first emphasize what we do eat on a paleo diet. Things like meats, poultry, fish, seafood, vegetables, fruit, roots, greens, herbs, all sorts of fresh, locally, seasonally available food. Basically what you could go to your farmer's market and get that someone has grown at the time of year that you buy it in your area. The food that you get at the farmer's market is going to be there when it's most nutritious, when it's the most flavorful, when it's very ripe and all the sorts of good stuff. That is when that food is going to be best for you. So the farmer's market is a really good place to start if you're looking to get into Paleolithic food. But a lot of people do want to know what we don't eat on a paleo diet. So as I said, there was no real agriculture, so we're not going to eat things like grains. There was no chemistry, so we're not going to eat food with any sort of additives or preservatives. A lot of modern chemical foods have been changed so that they can last longer on a shelf, so that they can be shipped all over the world. And again, these are some of the things that have been added to our foods that have made the foods less healthy for us. And then there are things like commercially pressed seed oils. These are, again, things that have been added to make food taste, some people would say better, to make it taste better, to make it more sharply appetizing. But these are some of the things that are really not very good for us in our food. So you may be wondering again why we have to cut out some of these modern foods. If there are good things about these modern foods, like we can feed so many more people, what are some of the bad things about them? Well, a lot of these foods increase our inflammation. Now, inflammation is behind a lot of modern diseases, things like obesity, autoimmune disease, any type of skin disease, joint disease, diseases of the gastrointestinal tract or the gut. These can all be traced back to inflammation. And when we can cut down the inflammation that's due to what's going on with our food, we can alleviate a lot of these modern health problems. So there are things, for example, one of the things I mentioned about modern agriculture is the way that everyone eats a lot of wheat. Wheat has a protein in it called gluten. Gluten irritates the lining of your gastrointestinal system, so your small intestine all the way down, and it can cause basically problems anywhere from your mouth all the way out the other end. Anywhere along the way, gluten can irritate the lining of your gastrointestinal system, create inflammation there, and create permeability in your gut, and this is going to lead to a whole host of other health problems. Things like, as I mentioned, expeller pressed seed oils. they're very high in a type of fat called omega-6 fats that can be very pro-inflammatory. That's why most people probably heard of omega-3 fats as being anti-inflammatory. These are, in a very general sense, kind of opposites of one another. That's why we say eat things like fish and seafood, because you're going to get a lot of omega-3 fats, and those are going to be anti-inflammatory and kind of counteract some of the other effects of the diet. Some of the other things that we like to avoid are things like sugar, additives like artificial sweeteners, stimulants like caffeine. These are all things that food manufacturers add to make their food more appealing, make their food more addictive. And things like junk food with high fructose corn syrup or lots of salt and sugar, they make them very appealing, and people can eat lots of them and they really enjoy them, but it's not the healthiest way to add food. So we're going to try to avoid some of those things like sweeteners and preservatives and additives, and go back to really simply prepared, as I mentioned before, meat, vegetables, healthy fats, and we're going to make our food taste better by adding things like herbs, spices, and there's a lot of things you can do to add flavor and interest to your food without making it really that kind of hyper palatable food that's going to be more like junk food. So there's lots more to talk about on this, but this is really just a quick introduction, and I hope you guys liked it. Thanks a lot.